Hello and welcome back again. In the last lesson, we talked about the letter names of notes on the treble stave and on the bass stave. So here I have a treble stave because the treble clef is written on this stave. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about here is these two lines that are above and below the stave. They are called ledger lines. They are short horizontal lines, and what are they used for? They are used to extend the stave. Because on a normal day, for example, the lines on the treble stave is we have them as E, E, G, B, D, and F. What if I wanted to continue, but the stave has only 5 lines? So in a bid to continue, that's where we introduce these short lines. We can use them to continue the stave as if the stave is more than 5 lines and 4 spaces. So they are called ledger lines. And as an example, let's look at this treble stave now. The 5th line of the treble stave up here is F. 5th line is F. So we draw this ledger line above it. And then what will the letter for this ledger line be? What's the letter name? Let's look at it. So this line is F. Remember, when we count line, space, and all that. So this is F. That's the last line up there. Now we have to count the space in between the ledger line and this line. This space will be G, which is just the next thing after F. And then the ledger line will be A, which is the next thing after G. Remember that there is no H. We only use the letters up to G. So after G, we go back to A again. So that means the letter name for this ledger line above the treble stave is A. So any note that is written on the first ledger line above the treble stave will be A. So we can also draw more ledger lines. For example, if this ledger line is A, the space above this ledger line will be B, and then the next ledger line that can be drawn above it will be C, and on like that. We can draw as many ledger lines as we want, while remembering that we always count line, space, line, space, line, space. So the same way, if we come under the treble stave, so this line is E. That's the first line of the treble stave. So what will this space be? Okay, for example, let me take it from G. So this line, the second line here is G. Then this space is F. That's like counting down. G, F. Then this line is E. Then what do you think this space will be? Maybe you can take a guess for a second. So if this line is E, this space will be D. Remember, we're counting down. E, D, and that means this ledger line will be C. And then the space under the ledger line will be B. And if there's another ledger line, it will be A. You know, counting down like that. G, F, E, and so on and so forth. So we can do the same exact thing for the bass stave too. And here we have it. So for the treble stave, you can see what I just explained. These notes are written here. This is F on the last line of the treble stave, and G, A is on the first ledger line, B is the space above the first ledger line, C is the second ledger line, and on, and you can also go down and down like that. So also for the bass stave, you have the last line up there to be A. That's the 5th line. So the space above that line is B. The first ledger line is C. The space above the first ledger line is D. The second ledger line is E. The space above the second ledger line will be F, you know, and on it goes. And we have the same thing when counting down. Very simple. So one could ask questions like, oh, what is the letter name for the second line below the bass stave, for example? The second ledger line. The second ledger line below the bass stave. Let's see. Below the bass stave, we are going below now. Below the bass stave, the second ledger line. 1, 2. This is it right here. And the answer is C, the second ledger line. Because the first ledger line is E. The first ledger line below the bass stave is E. And that is it there. also, and then the second ledger line will be C. Just counting down E, D, C. You get there. So it's just, just a matter of sequence, just counting letters, A, B, C. As simple as ABC. Okay, so I gave some exercises, just try it first before we move on. And then moving on, we go to what we call a great stave or a grand staff. Sometimes they call it a grand staff, sometimes they call it a great stave. This is the combination of the treble stave and the bass stave together. Like if I just draw a line connecting them together like this, then it becomes a great stave, and there you have it. That is a great stave. They join together with this line, and you have the treble clef and the bass clef, and this is just what is called a great stave. I mean, it's not anything big. So for the great stave, usually in music sheets, you see music sheet, or what I call music pieces, that is just like a page of, where they write all these music things. The treble stave is usually used for the treble and alto voices, or the treble or the soprano voices. So if you are a soprano singer, you'll find your notes written here. If you are an alto singer, you also find them written there. And for tenor singers and bass singers, you also have the notes written on the bass clef. So tenor singers usually tend to be up, and the bass usually tend to be down on the bass stave. So this is how a normal choir, music piece is usually written. And then finally, one interesting thing to note that these staves, the treble and bass staves, are not just connected with this line and called the great stave. They have another connection with them. So if you have done the previous exercise I talked about in the note I wrote, then you will discover that these this is the answer to the exercise, to exercise 1. The first ledger line below the treble stave, that is it. It is C. And the first ledger line above the bass stave, that is it. It is also C. It is interesting to note that this C and this C are exactly the same thing. They are exactly the same thing. And this means that this D and this D, which is the next note higher than the C, they are also exactly the same thing, which also means that this E and this E are exactly the same thing. So it's like the bass stave using ledger line just translates into the treble stave like that, and this C is kind of the middle line connecting them both. So let's see that here. So you can see the bass stave the way we said. Bass stave starts with G. The first line is G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. The space above the bass stave is B, which is just the natural next thing. And then the first ledger line above the bass stave is C, which is the same thing as the first ledger line under the treble stave. And then the space just below the treble stave will be D. And then the first ledger line, the first line of the treble stave is E. And then we go on and on and on like that. So this is the connection of the great stave in the in any music piece. So I think for that will be done there. So I gave an exercise, a second exercise. So you write down the letter names of the notes in the piece I'm going to send to you, and then the female, that's the soprano and alto voices, should write the ones on the treble stave, and the tenor and bass voices, that's the males, should write the ones on the bass stave. So that is it on great stave or grand staff. See you in the next lesson. Bye.